welcome to the special edition Terror in Lanka. We bring you a ground report on what really happened on that fateful Easter Sunday. The country woke up from its calm to a rude shock of Islamic radical fundamentalism and terrorism. One community was targeted, but the message was for the country. This is the worst ever terrorist attack carried out by the Islamic State. But the bigger concern for Sri Lanka today is radicalization of educated youth from well-to-do families.
On Easter Sunday, Sri Lanka was never the same. A new form of terrorism has arisen, the radical jihadi terrorism. The biggest worry for Colombo is that this jihadi underbelly is affluent, is educated. Most of the 9 bombers belonged to well-to-do families and were educated.
Some of the suicide bombers, most of them are well educated and come from maybe middle or upper middle class. So they are financially quite independent and quite, their families are quite stable financially. So that is a worrying factor.
We went to DEMATAGODA, a residential colony where the 2 main bombers of Grand Cinnamon and Shangri-La hotels lived. The Ibrahim brothers, sons of well-known spice trader and businessman Muhammad Yusuf Ibrahim, Ilham and Inshaf Ibrahim lived here along with Ilham's pregnant wife Fatima, who was the 9th suicide bomber.
If you look at the house and if you see it's a 3-story building, they owned a BMW car that's parked right outside their residence. It really goes to show that they came from an affluent family.
Nobody in the colony suspected the household of any wrongdoing. We went to the house just across the Ibrahim household and spoke to 14-year-old Abdullah Hakim about the family. The brothers, who had 6 other brothers and 3 sisters, were widely considered to be moderate Muslims who did not hold extreme views.
Nowhere did you or your family think that there was anything suspicious going on in the
Actually, the neighborhood around here, it's kind of very quiet and everyone minds their own business. Yeah. So actually, no one knows what's happening in any of the houses.
The suicide bombers were affluent. One of them studied in the UK and did his post-graduation from Australia. Access to internet and the dark web. These are the real concerns for Sri Lanka today.
The entire neighborhood here in DEMATAGODA is now living in fear. Most of the men over here in this entire colony, especially this lane where the Ibrahim family stayed and the lane next to it, the men of these families have been taken in for questioning. Serious concerns for the family and the women over here, many of whom are staying with the grandparents. They've called in their relatives because they were staying alone. Many of these men who knew nothing about what was happening today fear a backlash.
Locked houses and a barren look is what this lane of the colony wears. We're told that most men from these houses have been picked up for questioning.
Do you go out and play in the evenings or are you staying indoors, and why?
I'm staying inside because it's not safe. Since my dad was taken for inquiry, he hasn't returned yet, so it's not safe for my mother and sister.
The Muslim community today fears a backlash. There have been incidents of women being asked to remove their burqas and men fear being rounded up or picked up anytime.
A lot of houses have locks. Why?
Gone out.
They've
Anybody all out.
Why?
I don't know, maybe some problem, no?
Problem.
Yeah,
That's right.
police, army come in, check in, all out.
For now, the Islamic State has taken responsibility for the attacks, but authorities over here believe that it was the more radical splinter group of the NTJ, the National Tawheed Jamaat, that was responsible for the attacks. Let's explain how they planned the entire attack.
The first blast at 8:45 a.m. occurred at St. Anthony's Shrine. Minutes later, a second suicide blast shattered the Sunday brunch tranquility of the Kingsbury Hotel. Shangri-La Hotel's Table 1 restaurant, a favourite of foreign tourists, and the Grand Cinnamon. St. Sebastian's Church in Negombo, a town north of Colombo that is home to many Catholics, and in the eastern town of Batikuala at the Zion Church. Within a few hours on Sunday, suicide bombings hit 3 Christian churches and 3 upscale hotels, leaving 253 dead. Over 500 people were taken to hospitals. The little-known splinter group of NTJ in this video is clearly seen as pledging allegiance to the Islamic State, the Daesh. With the leader Zahran Hashmi's face unmasked, the person standing behind the men in the picture is the woman bomber Fatima. Investigators have traced the suicide vests to Ilham Ibrahim's copper factory, where they were all apparently fabricated. 9 factory workers have also been arrested. The 2 brothers had checked into Grand Cinnamon and Shangri-La the night before for easy access to the restaurant during Easter breakfast. There was a lot of fundamentalist literature found in their hotel rooms. Little is known if Zahran Hashmi died in these blasts or is still alive. Even as post-attack investigations are on, it is learnt that prior intelligence was given to the Lankan authorities, but nobody acted on it. And now, in a bizarre case, nobody seems to know about the intel. Not the President, not the Prime Minister, not even the top ministers of the Security Council.
There has always been sharing of intelligence between our 2 countries in regard to terrorism.
Was there specific intelligence on this?
There was specific intelligence on this.
Huge quantities of explosives were amassed and kept at the Ibrahim residence that worked as a safe house. And then, in a well-planned and coordinated manner, the men moved to the specified locations with the explosives. It is said that a house in Negombo was also taken way in advance by these terrorists. For now, intelligence agencies, including the FBI, are on the ground investigating the case. Yusuf Ibrahim and one of his sons are in custody for questioning.
While Easter Sunday was directed against the Christian community, there are intelligence reports to suggest that the Indian mission, Indian properties here in Colombo, as also the Indian community are and continue to remain under threat. While 11 Indians who were touring here in Sri Lanka lost their lives, it was a huge loss for their families back home. Let's listen into what the Indian community living over here have to say.
This is where 7 JDS members from Karnataka lost their lives. The Karnataka Chief Minister was quick to move on the matter and sent a team to get the bodies back. The other bodies were also flown back with the relatives.
Ma'am, they flight back yesterday. The remaining mortals have been transferred yesterday of Mr. Nagaraj, and the person named as Mr. Purushottam Reddy was severely injured has been transferred through air ambulance from Colombo airport. It took around one half day to find the person, but we finally found it after a day.
We interacted with some of the Indians here with business interests to understand where things stand.
Scarier. Do you think that Sri Lanka will be able to handle this? And the Indian High Commission, Indian community, Indian properties also, we're told, are under threat.
Yeah, I think this is a surprise to all of us when it happened. But there was intelligence information which was known to all of us. And people also knew this thing. But surprisingly, the type of impact took place. We never expected.
We've all loved this country. We all been here for such a long time. We still love this country. We want it to be good. We want it to be nice and peaceful. Hopefully the government will take right steps so that the peace is restored again.
As a youngster, youth here living as an Indian, now do you feel scared or worried when you're moving out because of the potential target that Indians could be?
Well, it's not. I wouldn't say it's so existential because I lived here my whole life, so I empathize. For me, Sri Lanka is home. So it's been about 10 years since the war finished. So I've been through a lot of the stories of the youth here. So I don't think it's me in particular. I feel the general panic or the general uncertainty that everybody else is feeling.
While Colombo still reels under the real threat of more such attacks likely to happen, 40 kilometers off Colombo is where the worst of this dastardly act took place. We went to NEGOMBO to find an entire village in mourning.
Once a peaceful tourist village, NEGOMBO, known as Little Rome because of its predominantly Catholic Christian population, woke up to the rudest and most violent shock on Easter Sunday. 40 kilometers off Colombo, this fishing village never imagined it could be caught in any ethnic or communal strife. But the Sunday morning Easter Mass at St. Sebastian's Church, Katuapitiya, left a trail of death and destruction. The smell of blood still lingers in the air of the church premises that witnessed worst of the bomb blasts. Over 100 people died in this one incident alone. Most were residents of NEGOMBO.
I, together with the other two priests and all the faithful, were just sitting on the benches and the chairs. So I heard a big noise inside the church. A smoke just erupted and it went towards the air, and the roof tiles were just falling and people were scattered and the benches were broken into pieces. So I couldn't believe my eyes. So then I heard the people were just crying in agony, and the parents were just carrying the dead bodies as well as the casualties.
As we drove down to the church, there were homes after homes in mourning. Endic Fernando is a man who has no words to express his loss. His wife and 2 daughters were at St. Sebastian's for the Mass. One daughter lies in the casket, the other injured, and the wife in hospital beknownst of her daughter's death. The house has a picture of the 13-year-old smiling daughter, Kaushika Hiroshi Fernando, but when you enter the premises, the weight of what has happened to this family leaves you feeling empty.
So my daughter dead on the spot.
Wife does not know?
No, not on the spot. My wife injured, now hospital treatment.
And she does not know that this one is no more?
No.
You have not told her yet? after the Easter attack here, every other house has someone either dead or grievously injured in the hospital. They say that white flags are put up on houses or houses where someone has died. And if you look across and down the street, every other house over here has a white flag up. That's how devastated this entire village is.
The destruction of the church building was enough to imagine what the extent of loss of life could have been. Shattered windows, blown off roof, broken idols inside and outside the church, benches strewn with blood, the stains on the floor. It will take a long time before normalcy will return here.
If you look at the windows, the window panes absolutely shattered. It just goes to show the kind of coordinated attack that took place over here. But there was a mass funeral which also showed the kind of solidarity that people have shown, various communities coming together, sea of people here at St. Sebastian's Church, a lot of them going through security, coming in, paying their respects and then leaving, many of them participating in the funeral. Message very strong from various communities here in Negombo, in Sri Lanka, that they are not going to really fall apart with these terrorist attacks, that they stand together and they'll fight it out to make Sri Lanka peaceful again.
Buddhist monks had come to offer their condolences, and as a mark of solidarity with the Christian community of Sri Lanka, they met the parish priest who suffered a minor injury on the head in the blast.
They came and blast here and several places. So many innocent children, people dead. But we don't like to fight with any ethnic group. This problem must handle government. This is government fault. Government must have to handle this.
As we left the church towards the burial ground, rows and rows of graves again tell the tale of the irreparable and irreversible loss that this fishing village has suffered. People not only from Negombo but also from adjoining villages and towns had come to offer prayers and stand with the families that lost their loved ones. The funerals were being carried out in batches. The church had designated a land for the mass burial where earth-moving heavy equipments were being used for digging the graves. Most over there believed that this is not over yet, but a continuation of such form of violence could spell disaster for the entire nation.
Sri Lanka is about 70% Buddhists, 13% Hindus, 10% Muslims and only 7% Christians. Any religious or ethnic strike over here could push this Indian Ocean economy back a decade. This country witnessed the worst civil war in modern world history, and people over here aren't willing to witness one again, one that is going to be more vicious and vile than the LTT itself. That brings us to the end of the show. Goodbye.